What is up, guys? Welcome to some more Life of Bliss. Today we are back in the garage with the Avalanch, and we are going to be replacing the inner and outer tie rods today. If you saw in the previous video, we put the upper ball joints on the truck because the wheels were starting to wobble a little bit. It goes through ball joints pretty quick with the lift. The last time I had this aligned, they had a little bit of trouble doing it because everything was so rusted up as far as tie rods and the adjustment nut and everything. So I figured with the lift, it's probably putting a little bit of stress on those as well. It's got about 160,000 miles on it. So we're going to go ahead and just replace the tie rods and get that taken care of. Get an alignment done tomorrow and be good to go as far as the front end suspension. So for today's project, you're going to need the outer and inner tie rods and inner tie rod removal and tightening kit. Various sockets, needle nose pliers, various wrenches, a torque wrench, and a long flathead screwdriver. So let's get this sucker lifted up and get started. Alright, so here's the tie rod we have to take off on the passenger side. Our outer tie rod's right here. Our inner tie rod with the boot is back there. We got to get our nut loosened up from the bottom down there, and then loosen our clamp on the boot there. And there's another clamp way in the back there. We're going to have to take a screwdriver and open it, and we'll reattach it with zip ties actually. So our first step is going to be to loosen our adjustment nut right there. I don't know why I thought I was going to be able to get it off without heat, but that's okay. I like doing this. See if we can't heat it up and get it off. Alright, I'm starting to see why it needed to be replaced. Sucker is very welded on there. That's about all I got it loose, but that will allow us to rotate our outer ball joint off. Alright, couple quick smacks with a hammer, and we got our tie rod end loose, and that is still fairly warm. Alright, so new plan. We are no longer going to try to get that outer tie rod off since we are taking the whole assembly off. We have loosened our clip back in the back there. We're just going to pull our boot off and take the entire assembly off since we'll be replacing both anyways. Alright, we were able to take a pipe wrench and get that loosened up to where we can take off. Actually comes off pretty easily after it's broken loose. Alright, so there we go. And this is why you pay people good money to do this sort of stuff. So, we cannot get the outer tie rod off to get our boot off. So we are going to cut it off at this end so we can salvage our boot. Alright, there we go. Got the end of the tie rod off. Cut off the end. We got our boot. We got our clip. Now we can start putting on the new tie rod. So before installing the new tie rod, it comes with some red Loctite you'll want to put on the threads, and then go ahead and thread it back onto the truck, and then we'll start putting everything else on afterwards after this is tightened down. Once you get your boot pushed back in position, you tie a zip tie on there to hold it on place, and you cut off the remaining part of that zip tie. Next, we'll take our clip and reinstall it back onto the boot. And since we had to cut our tie rod off and could not remove our outer tie rod, what we're going to do is measure from our grease zerk there to the very end of where that tie rod would have been. And we got roughly 15 inches. So we will screw the new tie rod on the same distance, and it should give us a rough estimate for us to go get our alignment done. All right, now once you have that roughly aligned, you'll take your lock nut there, you'll tighten it up against your outer tie rod. We'll throw our nut down on the bottom of the tie rod to lock it into our knuckle assembly, and then we will be done with this side. All right, we have our new tie rod in. All bolted up, cotter pin in, dust boot on. It is good to get in alignment tomorrow. And as usual, stuff takes a little bit longer than what I always planned, but you know, that's just what happens whenever you got 150,000 miles on something and you're dealing with these parts. Stuff rusts up, it's hard to get off. You have to end up cutting something off to salvage a boot. So quick little side note, first off to myself, do the first side first and then videotape the second side, because it goes a lot smoother the second time around once you know what you're doing. So instead of, like we were going to try to twist this off and count how many twists, what I did instead was just take the old tie rod, match it up with the new one, put the end of the threads here matching up with the end here, and just held it up against the old one like so, and got the approximate distance that it was going to take to get it closely aligned. And then what I did afterwards, you can't see it too well, but I took that silver Sharpie there and I put a little bit of silver right where the, so it was like right around there where the threads were, so you can just thread it back on into the silver part and you know that's where you need to stop. So you can see it a little better here. About halfway in between the outer tie rod and our nut there, you can see a little bit of a silver mark. That's where I got to screw this tie rod into and tighten it down. And like I said, that should give us a good enough rough estimate for getting our alignment done tomorrow. But this side is in, the boot is zip tied in, everything's secure. All we got to do is screw this tie rod up, tighten it, and connect it to our knuckle. Well, I think that's it for this video. We just have to throw the tire back on this side and then head over to the driver's side and get that one done. I hope you guys learned how to do tie rods on your vehicle, whether it be an Avalanche like mine or pretty much any other vehicle. It's going to be the same concept. Unfortunately, this little kit here from O'Reilly did not fit. The end of the tie rod was actually too long for this little socket to fit up against it. The width was right, but it was just too long, it wouldn't fit on there. But we got it done another way. But anyways, hope you guys liked it. Subscribe down below, hit the like button, and check back for more Life of Bliss.